Last week, we started working on our Tim Burton self portraits, and we played around with a lot of the different styles that Tim Burton generally uses in his characters, especially ones like The Nightmare Before Christmas. So, we're going to take a look at what sketches we did and our main one that we kind of put together last week. If we need a few minutes to catch up and finish on that one, we can use that at the beginning of this class time now. And once we're ready, what I would like us to move into is now that final portion. And we're going to start putting this on gray paper and using ways to highlight using white and black in order to give that Tim Burton look. And I always find, just because it was a lot of information last week, let's go over a tiny bit of why Tim Burton's style is so iconic and why a lot of people are drawn to it and how you can connect to it as you're creating your self portrait. Tim Burton, who his artwork seems to be a little bit more different than others, and he's always had this really neat imagination. And he uses a lot of dark and light colors and just enjoys creating weird looking people and monsters that are brave and generous. And he has his own type of unique way. So, several of his art movies that he's done, because he likes to draw everywhere and all the time, is one of the most famous ones that stands out to me is The Nightmare Before Christmas. And it was actually when he used clay animation. So each action in it was a stop motion of clay, and they put it all together. But I guess the best way to describe is when you look at a lot of Tim Burton's drawings is he says he has this need to draw as a way to focus and to kind of unleash his imagination. And as a child, when he was a kid, he felt that he was different from other children because he enjoyed drawing monsters and he just felt that his art was his way to just be himself. And whatever characters he drew, he made them characters that were very shy or characters that felt left out. And it wasn't until his art teacher at school encouraged him that he was really able to create this style of his. And he felt he had more freedom. And that's why he started writing and illustrating books and then became a visual storyteller by doing, it was a movie called Frankenweenie. Okay, so today we're going to take out our practice from last week. I'm going to give you a piece of gray paper, a white colored pencil if you don't have one, and a black colored pencil. The reason that we're using the white and the black color pencils or crayons, if you have at home, is because Tim Burton has more of that dramatic look in each of his. And so based off of our sketch that we had last week and on our gray paper, I know it'll be hard for me, for you to see with a pencil. So what I'm going to try to do is try my best to draw or redraw what I've drawn here of my example on this gray paper so that you can see it. The first thing I'm going to try to do is replicate the shape of my self-portrait here. Once you have drawn or copied what you did the first time onto your other paper, I want you to take your black crayon or black marker and trace over all of your pencil lines. The next step as you're working on this is you're going to go through and you're going to color in with the white colored pencil, or if you have a white crayon, because we're doing this on gray paper. If you're at home, you can leave this white if you're using a white piece of paper, and you'll just go back in a little bit and darken things with shading more. So the step that I'm doing right now is called the highlight. I'm going in and I'm adding my highlights. Follow the shape of the eye. You can push light or dark as you're putting it on there, and it gives you that nice curve effect and look. Now that I added in that part of my highlight, I'm going to go in and add my shadows a lot better. So I'm going to really go around and darken with my shadows using my colored pencil, or if you have a black crayon. If you're using markers at home, I would suggest using your pencil and just having a nice thick dark pencil line. And we're going to start with these eyes first. Now around underneath the eyes here, I'm going to give a little bit of a shadow, give this gloomy look. In the past with our projects, I've always talked about smudging. So you can also smudge this a little bit with your finger, kind of make it dirty, just like with the pencil. You can do that with the colored pencil too. And if you ever took off too much, just go back in and very lightly do that again. If you have a blender at home, you can use one of those blending tools too. So you're going to do the same thing that I did over here, but you're going to do it with your other eye too. I'm going to give a little bit of a shadow up top as well. Maybe a little tiny off of my eyelashes so they look more interesting. And obviously go back in and darken that pupil so it stands out really well. Don't worry if you get a little bit on the white. You can always go into the eyeball and give a little bit of a shadow on your white. And just play. You cannot go wrong with learning to add shadows and play. Once you have your first eye, start going in and doing your second eye, just like we did. Begin again by going around the outside. It does not have to be perfect. You can make some areas thinner or thicker. And do the same thing. What I was suggesting is if you had a pencil and you're working on your original or on a paper because you don't have a gray one, you would do the same thing, but you would use a pencil to add in those shading lines. So like we were just doing, you would darken it with your pencil, and what's nice is your pencil, you can smudge it. You can use a marker to do like the really dark parts, but that's how I would suggest going through and adding in some of those black, white, and gray features. As you can see, it's already drastically different on the white paper. It just looks a little bit more so on the gray because the white really pops. So take your time and add in just like the other. Once you get the eyes the way you like, so I added in just a little bit of shading on top of the white. Start doing, you can go to your nose next, whichever style you had. Darken the pencil line, and then add in that shading lines wherever you feel. You can smudge it. Just think of anywhere it overlaps. That's where you're going to have the shadow. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of a highlight. Make her nose a little shiny here. If you do it light enough, the nice thing about colored pencil is you could erase it off too. But you have to do it a little bit light. The next thing about when you're adding in shading and value is you want to also consider just how dark you're going. Do you push lighter to make it's easier to go lighter to darker than it is to go from really dark to light. So when you're adding in value, you want to work it in slowly. And I always tend to go back in later and go, you know what, I really want it darker in one area than another. And having certain spots like here, I'm going to add in this little dark pop, and now you can see how that change makes a difference. And maybe you go in and you add a little bit differently in the corners or something. So not every one. And I could go back and play with this a lot and continue doing so. All right, so now I'm going to work on my face. And this is where you can either have really clean looking lines or not clean looking lines. It's up to you. It's always easiest to draw a straight line coming towards you. It's harder to draw a straight line away from you. You have more control when things are coming towards you than you do away from you. And same thing, think about where things overlap. So add in your shadow on the side, like by your cheeks. You know, how are your cheekbones? Where things kind of meet. If you have hair touching, that's where it's going to be darker. And maybe you have some other little lighter areas. You just play around with the shadow. What I meant to say is notice when I'm doing my shadow, I'm following along with the line. So I'm following along with my line here. And that's the most important part to remember. And there's no wrong way, really, to do this. You make it however way you want. It's just playing with these ideas, and you can smudge it however you need to. I got my ear next. Make the shadow a little darker the closer it is to my face. And then it's lighter as it comes out. Maybe I want to have like a little something here. And I always wear earrings, so I might just put like a little pop of a fun earring on my ear. My sparkle for the day. So anywhere that something's getting close, that's where you want to give it a shadow. There we go. So now I've got half of my face done. And maybe for here, just to give myself a little bit of idea, I want my neck shadow a little darker. I'm going to do my lines straight up and down on my neck. Instead of coloring on an angle, it just makes her neck look even longer. So my lines are vertical, and it just gives this illusion. And then when I finish it off, I might change it a little bit like this on that line. But anything that's closest to where it's touching something else, you want it darkest for your shadow. If you want to do a pop of color, you could do a pop of color for your shirt or something fun. You don't have to. I might make this a little bit like my lanyard. All right, so I want to forget this side of the face, so I'm going to go back in. I also wanted to note that I really like using a tip that's not really sharp. The duller it is, the more you're able to move it around and not get like a scratch in your paper. If it's too sharp, it breaks or it doesn't give like the best shading. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to turn it this way, just so you guys can see what I'm working on. You can do however works best for you. For my hair, I'll make it dark. For my hair, I'm going to add in some darker areas because I have dark hair. If you have lighter hair, you maybe want to start with some gray lines, not as dark inside. And I'm going to add in some little areas of white just to give it a little bit of a pop, like such.
see here, you really want to go back in, and I thicken this line nice and dark. And now I can start going back and going, okay, I really, really want to exaggerate the shading on my character here. So you can see how it's starting to pop a lot more. And then I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to make these crazy lines because my hair is wavy and lots of silly stuff. I call it, it has its mind of its own, as my mom would even say for me too. For my hair, her hair is the same way. So I'm just going to go in and add in some shading and value. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could just be wonky. The goal that I want you to work on is to try your best on adding in those values. I'm having the darkest part be here and the lighter part on this side. So like I said, it's easier to go back and add in darker areas than it is to go dark to light. And I always tend to go back and add darker areas at the very end of areas that I really want to stand out and pop. Okay, once you're done with this part, what you can do is add in some fun spider webs or marks up the corners, and then I'll show us how to create that awesome background frame. So to do your corners, you can just do a couple lines and make these almost hashtag lines like spider web marks. Again, you can start adding in the value if you want, where you have some that are darker, some that are lighter. Kind of smudge it so it gets a little marked up a little bit, and do that on each of these corners. So I did the dark on the bottoms here. Now I'll do the top parts. And there you go. So there is my finished part here.
Now that we have our corners done, the next step that I want you to do is take a look at the different frame designs that I have. You can, based on Tim Burton, come up with any type of frame that you feel like. So what you're going to need next is a piece of black paper, and then you're going to place it on your black paper by gluing it first. So around it, I want you to do the glue lines around the edges, and then I always do a big X. You don't need a lot of glue. Remember to close up your glue stick and put it to the side, and then place it, doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, but place it on that larger paper. Right now what I'm doing is squishing it on the black paper using my sleeves to kind of help aid me in not smearing anything that I don't want to have smeared. What I also am doing is taking my glue stick and going back and just applying some glue to the corners. Hold it down for a good couple seconds, allowing it to adhere well. And then once you're done, you'll put the glue cap back on just as you would, and let's move on to the second part. The really nice part about Tim Burton is his picture frames are wonky. They don't have to be exact. So I feel a little inspired by that wonky design. I'm going to use a pencil to just play around with the concept first. I'm going to kind of just come up with a wonky lines going from the sides and then all the way down. The next step is to take out your scissors and start cutting the design that you came up with. Finally, let's grab that white colored pencil again, and we're going to add in some fun designs on your piece. Thanks for watching at Mrs. Holland Art Room. I hope you enjoyed.